Welcome to the show. We have a living legend today, Mark Farner, formerly of Grand Funk Railroad. He is the singer, guitarist, and primary songwriter for that band. But of course, now he has a solo career. And with Grand Funk Railroad, he sold millions of records. And they actually sold out Shea Stadium in New York faster than the Beatles did. They had two number one songs, We're an American Band, and their cover of Loco-Motion, plus tons of other hits. And despite Mark's success, he's had some bad luck along the way, including some bad business dealings and being cut out of the band. His son died. Mark himself died twice while having a pacemaker put in. And I'm fascinated to understand how he still has such a positive outlook on life, and he isn't mad at anyone or the universe. So it's very interesting to hear his outlook on life and his philosophy. He's a very spiritual guy, and he has some really fascinating stories. So check it out. Welcome, Mark Farner, to the Chuck Shoot Podcast. How the heck are you?
I'm proud to be sucking air, brother Chuck.
That's good, especially in this day and age with all the COVID, and some people aren't sucking air. So it's good to hear you're healthy. You're staying away from that stuff, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's good. So yeah, you got this whole story. It's amazing. There's like ups and downs. And I mean, it really starts, I think, back when you were a kid and you're playing football and you injure yourself and your mom buys you a guitar because you can't play football. And that's when you started playing music, right?
That's exactly right. I had it in me prior to that. I had the love for music because every weekend, my mother, either at her house, at our house on Davison Road in Flint, Michigan, we'd have a jam session, or at my Aunt Dorothy's, who was my mother's sister, her only sister. But it was going to be one place or the other. And we were going to have a jam session where they had banjo and violin and guitars, and my dad blew saxophone, but all the women sang beautiful, this harmony, man, the family, there's something about family harmony. And I was in love with music as a young boy growing up. I just, man, it was really touching my soul, what they were doing. And I thought that someday it'd be nice to learn how to play an instrument like that. But I wasn't really into it at the time. My age caused me to be into women coming after me because I'm a football player.
Sure.
Rather than a guy in the marching band behind a tuba.
Yeah. So, and then is it true that your guitar teacher blew his foot off with a 12-gauge shotgun?
Yes.
I mean, what? There's so much crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, well, that, was the October 20th was opening day of ringneck pheasant season in Michigan back then. And we had a lot of ringneck pheasant in our state. And I remember, people bringing in, 10 birds. There was so many. But anyways, he tried climbing a fence with a 12 gauge in his hand. And that was like one of the first things I learned in the gun safety is if you got to climb a fence, you take that gun 2 posts down and lean it. And then you go down 2 posts, climb over, go down and retrieve the weapon.
Yeah.
That's like gun safety. That's in the rules.
Sure. So anyways, you continue to play music. Now tell me this story. I don't know if I thought I caught this a little bit. You saying something about getting kicked out of high school. You had a confrontation with a teacher. What happened there?
Well, the Holy Rosary School finished out their day. They did the first half of their school day at Holy Rosary, and then they would come up and finish off at Kearsley High School the last half of the day. So when it was lunch hour, the Holy Rosary bus rolled up, and the guy who was the football coach was standing over near the doorway where these Holy Rosary kids came through. And I was standing across the hallway over by the library in front of this heat register that we all hung out around because, of course, it was warm. And he hollers over to me. He says, "Farner, move your boys." And I looked at my friends and I said, "These are not my boys." And he came over. He was so pissed. He grabbed a hold of me, threw me up against the wall, and my head like ricocheted off the brass picture frame of the superintendent of schools that had a light on it, and it was a big. But I reached back there, and this guy has still got me by the collar like this, and I reached behind me because it hurt, buddy, and
Mm-hmm.
I felt the wetness, and when I saw the blood on my hand, I hit him, and it opened up his unzipped his eyelid. It fell down over the top of his eye, and he started. After he got back up off the floor, he was throwing haymakers. If he would have ever contacted, he would have knocked me cuckoo. But I would duck and duck, and as I'm timing it, I'm going to hit him again. I got it in my mind. If this guy's coming after me like this is only one way to stop this. And so I draw back, and I'm going to hit. And my friend goes, "Don't, Farner." He says, "Geez, you're in enough trouble already. Don't hit him again. My God, you idiot." So
Wow.
I went back with a lawyer. I went back in front of the school board, and the lawyer at the time, this algebra teacher who was a football coach told the school board that if they allowed me to come back into school, that he was going to resign.
Mm.
So then the attorney looks over at me and he says, "Yeah, he's got kind of long hair and sideburns too." And, and I'm thinking, you buttwad, you're supposed to be on my side? Oh
Yeah, right. Wow. So that was the end of that. So is that when you started playing in bands? Was one of your first bands you played with Dick Wagner, who's Alice Cooper's guitar player, right? And he's the one that taught you how to write music or inspired you, told you you could do it, basically.
Yes, that's right. And but Dick Wagner, I was with him playing rhythm guitar for about a year before I went to play bass guitar for Terry Knight and the Pack.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you formed the Fabulous Pack, three kids from Flint, Michigan. And, there's this whole thing with the snowstorm and, a couple of your band members, the wives threatened to divorce them. So that's when you guys decided to get some new members, and you're just going to have three people. That's what probably a lot of people wonder, why is there only three people in Grand Funk? It's because you just wanted these three people that were all in it. They weren't going to have their wives trying to kick them out of the band, and
Right.
you formed Grand Funk, right?
That's right. We said no women. No, we can't have any players that even got a girlfriend.
Wow.
We were like 19 at the time, and Mel Shocker was 18 when we started. So
Yeah, and so is it true your first gig was at Atlanta Pop Festival in 1969? Your lawyer or attorney got you on the festival, 180,000 people. Is that right?
yes, that is exactly right. And the adventure getting to Atlanta, Georgia from Flint, Michigan, we borrowed our friend's van and got a U-Haul trailer. Not only did our friend supply the van, but he also supplied a driver. And Jimmy drove us because we took off at night, and anticipated driving all night. And then in the morning, one of us would take over driving. So I was riding shotgun, and I opened my eyes. It wasn't daylight yet, but I could see a sign that says I-75 and an arrow to the right. Well, at this time, I-75 was not done. It was just we had to take a lot of back roads and what have you. So I go I-75 to the right like this, and Jimmy, the driver, just cranks that wheel, and that U-Haul trailer that was behind the van flipped down through the ditch. The safety chains, there was no, they don't have any strength. They wouldn't hold a trailer on. Anyways, we had to unload all the equipment, right the trailer, put it back on its two wheels, then load all the equipment back into it, hook it on the vehicle, and we're kind of nursing down the apron of the road on the side there, and probably about 40 miles an hour. And this tire passes us. It came off the trailer and went right past us. And we had to go retrieve that, pull lug nuts off the one side that still had the tire. We took a couple of lug nuts off of that one and put on the one that came off, and we just nursed it down the shoulder of the road to the next exit, which had a U-Haul trailer rental place. And we were so lucky. I mean, that was a stroke right there. But we switched all of our equipment out, and at that time we could see that there was a lot of broken stuff, but we didn't have time to look at it or repair it or anything. All we had time to do was transfer it and pedal to the metal to get to Atlanta on time. And when we pulled up in Atlanta, Georgia, then the roadies opened the back of that trailer, started pulling amp heads out. They'd take the cases apart. The transformers that were formerly on the chassis of these amplifiers were ripped off. The wires were broken. There were busted circuit boards, and our roadies are standing there going, oh my God, what are we going to do? But at this time, the community of rock and roll was so badass that the roadies from all of these other bands that were there, they saw that we needed some help right now, and they came to our rescue. It was like,
oh, that's awesome.
Like MASH 4077, man. They came in and they repaired our stuff. It was duct taped together. The cases that were cracked are, duct taped, and the amp heads, but it worked, and it worked for us. It worked really good. And we used it for 3 days of that festival. Started at noon, the opening day. They didn't want us to leave the stage. We started at 7:00 p.m. the following day. And then the last night of the festival was 11:00 at night under the full lights. And we were Grand Funk, man, from then on.
That's awesome. So then, yeah, you guys have a lot of success. You sell out Shea Stadium, but then in '73, you work with Todd Rungren. Tell me about working with him, because I had Joey from Badfinger on here, and he said that it was rough working with that guy. And he had a story about it, telling me that, years later he would see Todd Rundgren. He said, you were kind of a jerk to us. And then Todd Rundgren said, no, that's just how you remember it. And then Joey kind of laughed and thought, well, that's kind of a funny way to put it. But did you have any kind of those experiences with him, or?
No, the only experience that we, memorable experience that we had were all good. I had gone home to eat lunch, which I had a farmhouse across the street from the studio.
Right.
And when on my way back to the studio, the guys were out in the parking lot. I couldn't see them because the woods were in the way, but I could hear them out there. And I just start singing, man, as I'm walking. It's a sunny day, beautiful, a little bit of breeze. Everybody's doing a brand new dance, and the guys are out in the parking lot, and they're going, come on, baby. And they're doing the background vocals, And as I come around the corner, and I can now see the guys, they've been out in the parking lot, they had a smoke, and they're out there having, some conversation. And as they're singing and I'm singing to them, Rundgren walks out the end door of the studio, and he says, what the hell is that? And I said, what is that? That's Little Evil, man. That's a Loco-Motion. He says, you guys get in here right now, because we're going to cut the Loco-Motion. That song has got to be cut right now. And so he goes in, starts it's a 24 track reel to reel. He hits the red button and comes out into the studio with us. And he's clanging the ashtrays together and singing all the high falsetto parts. And he, during my solo in the Loco-Motion, he grabbed my Echoplex with the tape head, and he would move it from one end to the other of that Echoplex, and he'd go, it sounded like the guitar was eating itself, and he was just having a ball. And every time he'd do it, he'd have this wild look in his eyes. It was crazy.
Wow. Well, it worked. Yeah, you guys had some good songs with that. And then, obviously, probably your biggest hit were an American Band. Now, Brewer got 100% songwriting credit, but did I hear you say that you helped write that song, but you let him have all the credit?
Yes, I am responsible for the cowbell, and it got in Rolling Stone magazine. It was rated number 2 in cowbell songs, only superseded by Honky Tonk Women. And I wrote the drum lick on the intro. That's my drum lick. I wrote all of the chord changes, all that stuff, the background vocals. I composed all that. And because I'm a nice guy, when he said, Farner, I have never had 100% right credit on any song. Do you mind if I take it on this? I said, go ahead, because I am a nice guy.
You are, yeah.
I try, I practice being nice. It is my goal to be nice. And even though I've been screwed over by people who took my niceness as a way to further themselves, even though that's happened, it doesn't make me want to stop being nice. It makes me want to continue, because whatever somebody does uh, because of your niceness, it doesn't come back to haunt you. It comes back to haunt them.
Well, let's talk about that then, because I mean, you guys had some bad business dealings with Terry Knight. First of all, he had this thing where he was telling you that you guys were making more than the Beatles, but that was all bullshit. And he was stealing an extra 10%. He said it was 6%, but it was actually, the deal was 16%. He was keeping an extra 10%. And then was he the one that screwed you over with this thing in Europe where they said they're going to pull this money in a Swiss bank account and you just never saw the money?
Exactly.
How is that? And you couldn't come after him for that? You couldn't sue him or anything? Or?
Well, when we finally discovered and had the evidence, then we contacted John Eastman, attorney, New York City, Linda Eastman, Paul McCartney's first wife, her brother, John Eastman, was our attorney. And he said, this is going to hang you guys up unless we can and somehow settle it out of court. It's going to hang you up, and there's going to be all of this evidence, all these things that they're going to want to put on hold, and you're not going to be able to do anything until the court settles the case and determines what can be done with this and that, whatever, unless we can settle it out of court. So we said, well, whatever you do, settle it out of court, because we don't want to be tied down. We don't want to be strapped here.
Yeah.
For the rest of our life. Here we are, dry dock someplace.
So you did get it all settled then?
Yes.
And you actually forgave Terry for that, which is like mind boggling to me, because I would be so angry. Did he apologize though?
No, he didn't apologize. I don't think he knew what to do with it when I told him that I had forgiven him, because he just didn't have that. He didn't tick that way. He did not have it within him to realize that I had set myself free. When you exercise forgiveness, you can't believe what comes back to you as a result of that. And it's irrevocable. You couldn't sidestep it if you wanted to, because it's from God. And love is a rewarder of those who diligently seek it. And I have been diligently seeking it. And there's no love expression in hateful things or trying to do something to get back at or retaliate in some way.
But how do you let that go? I don't know if I could just let it go like that. I don't know if I could forgive. Like, is there some sort of like mantra that you say to yourself, or how do you just let that, the feeling doesn't just make you angry when you think about it?
Well, our natural composition is from love. When those babies come out of the womb, they don't have, knives in their teeth and guns in their hand. You got to teach kids how to do shit like this. But we are from love. We came from love to earth, and we then have to deal with all this encumbrance that debt consciousness puts us. Puts us in a snafu, because here we are, our composition is love, and now we're being compelled to believe that if we don't do this, or something, that there's going to be some repercussions. And so we go, oh my God, repercussions? I thought I was free. Wait a minute. And then you start discovering that debt consciousness, not just monetary debt, Chuck, but the debt of unfulfilled expectations. When people expect you to do things and you don't do it, they put you on the shit list.
Mm-hmm.
That's another form of that. And all this debt that we've encountered in our life is accumulative in its nature, and it keeps weighing us down. But we don't have the vision. We don't have a scale with a damn needle saying, oh, you're getting close to overload here. But a lot of people have found that with the stress load, and it's stress their heart, and they've died because of it. I'm not one of those people. I have found that debt is our enemy. It's worse than any other four-letter word you can imagine. In fact, look that word up in a old, like a Webster's dictionary, something from. Look that word up. It takes pages and pages and pages. Oh my God! It's you cannot believe the encumbrance that it gets into with debt. But if we can determine and decide what is a debt unto us, we can actually cut that chain to that attachment and get rid of it. Because as soon as you discover it, it's gone. When you let yourself be that free person that you've been striving to be all of your life. This is part of that forgiveness, Chuck, that I don't know. It just makes me feel better not to hold unforgiveness and hateful thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
That shit would eat my lunch, dude. And
Yeah.
I want that power is my power. I want to direct it in the way I determine, and I have determined that it's going to be love that I serve from here out.
Okay.
I'm not gonna serve any of that shit. It's just
That makes sense. It's kind of like this guy that I listened to, and he talked about, like when you go to the grocery store and maybe sometimes you see somebody that bothers you, like somebody that's overweight or not dressed well or whatever. It's like, instead of trying to be critical of that person, is just project love onto that person. He's like, do that with everybody. And I was like, oh, that's like really interesting advice. But I think it's kind of what you're saying is like, you just project love onto everything and everybody instead of trying to be critical or hateful or yeah.
Yeah, man. And you find out that it's more of a natural inclination than you had ever given it credit for being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you begin to practice that, you can't sidestep the reward. You just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then back into another, business deal, the whole thing with Grand Funk and how it ended. It's so weird to me. First of all, 76, Brewer just comes in and says, hey guys, I need to do something more stable with my life. And he quits. I don't understand that. Cause again, like 5 or 6 years ago, you guys had sold out Shea Stadium. Weren't you still doing well at that point? Why was he worried about not having stability?
Well, I don't know where he was in his head. We never did figure that out. He's just been a different kind of guy all his life. So whatever it was, we never got anything outside of those words that you just repeated. And of course, after that, I started putting together my solo band and got a deal with Atlantic Records for 2 albums and was on my way.
Yeah. So explain the solo stuff and the like, you've done the Christian music, but you found God kind of after a split with your wife, and you didn't want the fire and brimstone churches. You wanted this church of kind of like we just talked about with the love. And, you'd split with your wife, you prayed for her to come back and she did.
Yeah, it was that same day because I'd been in several churches. And like you mentioned, when they start that hellfire and brimstone shit, I would get up and leave. And my part of my test, Chuck, was I walk in, I got a headband on, long hair, a Hawaiian shirt, faded jeans, and sneakers. If they could get past that and get to who I am, and if that didn't bother them, I might sit and listen. But if they couldn't just get past, I could tell, just if somebody's looking at me like, where did this come from? I just turn right around and go right back out. And I did that on a few occasions. But the church that I got into was a AOG, Assembly of God, and it was a bunch of older people. They didn't know me from Adam, and when I walked in there, this, I guess he was at the time 86-year-old pastor,
Yeah.
Pastor Exley, and he was preaching on the institution of God's word in marriage and how people walk out the front door of the church, and instead of implementing all these oaths, these sacred oaths that we take with one another, it's like that is left behind at the altar, and we walk out and start having this life. But we don't take seriously those things that are said and their life commitments. And I'm going, God, this guy is killing the shit out of me. He's like shooting, and he's got no blanks, man. He's got live rounds. And I'm thinking, God, did you put me in here for this? I mean, he's like preaching to me. And so when at the end of his service, he gave a altar call, and I went up and I rededicated my life to God and to love, because God is love, and love is forgiveness. And I told him, the pastor, I said, my wife, you know, she's been gone, and I kept thinking she was coming back, but obviously she's not coming back to me. And I've got my kids. My sister-in-law is watching them right now. I said, can you pray with me for God to bring my wife back? He says, you pray and I'll agree. So I just, like we're talking here, I talked to God, and I said, if you bring her back to me, I sure would appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And that day, 50 miles away, in the city where she was living, she gave her life to the Lord, and she became a Christian. And we got back together a couple of days after that, and we've been together 43 years, and it's the best 43 years I've ever spent. I mean, I could have never put 43 years in and got the education, got the amount of love that I got from this woman. She is in her native side. She is Chippewa. Our kids are all tribal members, and she has a native heart. She has her ear to the ground, and she has that perception that women have, that men wish they had. But we need them for that touch, because
Yeah.
how would we hear spiritual things without our women? And it is the Cherokee men. It is a custom within the Cherokee Nation that the Cherokee men esteem their wives to be equal with themselves. If you don't esteem that partner to be equal with you, how could you give all of yourself? You can't.
Hmm.
So if
Wow.
there's little reservation, you're not going to be able to give 100%. So you're only fooling yourself. You got to give 100%, abandon, reckless abandon, give it. If it's misused, if all those things that you thought was going to happen, the bad things do come to pass, there'll be something that supersedes them to pay the payoff, which will blow it out of the water by 10 times, and your reward is great.
Really? Okay. Well, that's good advice then. Yeah. So, because you got the Medal of Honor from Cherokee Nation for lifetime achievements, right?
That's right, brother.
Yeah, that's really neat. So I had a question about this too. So your solo stuff, because you start, you're doing Mark Farner, and then you do Mark Farner's American Band, and then your old bandmates sued you for that band name. What's wrong with that band name? That's your name.
Yes. Well, I guess because of the song American Band, and because Don has the 100% ownership of it, he was trying to use that and say that there was confusion in the marketplace, uh, of the fans coming to see me rather
Hmm.
than to come to see them. And it's been like that ever since the whole thing started. It's kind of childish stuff. I have to overlook it because I know it's coming from a mind that's not quite with it, that there's still that anger and retaliation. They're off their path temporarily. Those people that look to hurt someone, they intend to do harm to another person, they're off their path. This is not natural. It is unnatural for that to occur.
Yeah, why are they mad at you? What did you ever do?
I don't know, brother.
Oh.
Just me being me, and somebody wanting to be up there instead of me.
Because you even say that you would still get back together with them despite all what they've done and all these bad business dealings and suing you and stuff. You still would rather get together and be Grand Funk, all three of you.
That's right. I would do it for the sake of the fans, brother. I love the fans, and I always go out. I always, sign autographs. I sign people's records and their tapes and CDs and what have you, because I want them to know how much I appreciate them, and I love hearing the stories from the fans. From their telling me a story, I'm going, oh my God, this is so cool. The first time they heard this record, it was like, man, and then they paint the scene for you. It's magic for me. It just compels me.
What's one of the coolest stories you've heard from a fan?
Well, like on Mr. Limousine Driver, this guy was a limo driver. He was a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he pictured himself as the limousine driver for Grand Funk. Every time that song would come on, he's the limo guy in the movie running in his head, because this was a long time before any videos,
Yeah, yeah.
And he would fantasize to that. I thought that was cute, man. I mean,
That's really cool. Yeah. I think it's
that out.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I say he just kind of let that out of his heart, and it was good because he was giggling as he was telling me,
Yeah, that's great. You know what I love? I don't know if you're still doing this, but I heard that what you were doing at one point for your set list is that you were polling fans on the internet and letting them kind of pick the songs they wanted to hear, basically giving the people what they want, which is like kind of a novel. It shouldn't be a novel idea for musicians, but a lot of them don't, they don't like playing certain songs or whatever, but you're just saying, I'll play what you guys want to hear.
Yeah. And what we did was have people send in the 10 songs that they would want to hear in the set, their top 10 songs. And so with that list, we were able to make a good set list, because we just, the law of averages, well, this many people saw this, and this. So it gave us a great place to start, because you're going to do all the hits, and that's going to take half the set anyways.
Mm-hmm.
What the deep cuts and what the fans want to hear, there's only one way to find out. You got to ask them, and we're glad we did, because in the set this year, there's some things that people haven't heard in 30, 40 years. Like I Come Tumbling is in the set off E Pluribus Funk.
Okay.
It's there because so many people said, man, E Pluribus Funk, that is a album that stands out by itself. It sounds different. Well, I played it with a white SG that Stevie Marriott sold me for $200 when they came to America. He told me about this when I was there in Europe with them, and they were opening for us. He said, I got a guitar, great guitar that you should have. And I said, well, if you want to bring it to the US with you, man, I'll buy it from you. He charged me $200 for a white SG, dude. And Stevie Marriott. So
Wow.
that song inspired not only just the writing of the music on E Pluribus Funk, but it was the guitar that played each one of those songs. And it just seemed that guitar was like playing butter. I mean, it was so quick. There was no sticky parts, and just easy to get around on. So
yeah. Well, and of course you'll play the song Bad Time. That's one of my favorites. Tell me the story about how you wrote that. It was like I think it was was it your first wife when you?
yes, and we were having a spat, and I was sitting in the dining room trying to construct some music, and I was hearing these foul words coming from the kitchen. And I'm sitting there, and then all of a sudden I hear something about a 12-inch cast iron skillet going through my forehead, and I'm going, oh, that's a bad word picture right there. Oh my God, this is a bad time to be in love. You know? And the song came forth.
That's a great song. Yeah. Gosh, you've done so much cool stuff. You've toured all over the place. I heard you talking about this, that you went to Japan and that was one of the best places you visited. Something about, explain this, the snow monkeys you got to see. Explain this to me. This sounds fascinating.
Yeah, the snow monkeys, they dwell up in pine trees up in the mountains way up, but there's a park up there where the springs that come out of the ground, it's a hot springs, there's some
Mm-hmm.
activity up there, and the monkeys get in this hot water, this steamy water, and it smells like a fart, dude. I'm telling you, sulfur fart. And the signs say, do not feed the monkeys, do not look the monkeys in the eye, and do not leave infants unattended, because those female monkeys, they see a baby like that and it's their instinct to protect it, so they'll go get that baby and they think they're protecting it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but there's only 13 rooms in the motel that we stayed in up there, and we had stayed a couple of nights before in some of the hot springs hotels, but it wasn't nearly as severe a smell in the spring water. And we got in these pools, and I mean, the snowflakes this big are falling down, and you're in a hot pool out there, looking at the stars. It was a beautiful thing. But when we got up there to the snow monkey park, they crap in that water. And people get in the water. I'm thinking, I am not getting in that water, man. It smells too bad. And I see these little baby roots floating around out there in there, in
Wow.
this, so it was a wonderful trip. We got to, actually go close to them. I wouldn't look them in the eyes, but when they would look away, I would check them out like, wow, these. And the ones where we were at, there was big ones that were average of like 5 foot. And then there were some that were average 3 foot. And the big ones always came in and ate first. And then when they got their fill, they would file out, single file up the mountain, and away they'd go. And then the little ones would come in,
Hmm.
and then they'd get fed. And it was just great to be there with them and see them, swinging from pine trees.
Yeah, like in their natural habitat, not in the zoo where it's like, in this little cage. That's
Yeah.
kind of cool. So yeah, and you have some other shows coming up. You're doing a show with John Corabi. I had him on the show. I love that guy. How do you know him? Or do you know him?
I don't.
Oh.
I'm gonna know him.
Oh, that's the first time. Is he? I'm assuming. I think he's a fan, though, isn't he?
I hope so. I hope.
But somebody put you guys together to do a show, so that's exciting.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be us playing together on stage.
No. But I mean, he'll open for you, or
Yes.
yeah, that's exciting. And then, are you working with Mark Slaughter? I heard as well. You guys have a project going.
Yes, we just finished one of the tunes that the first one that we worked on. It's called Anymore. One word, Anymore. It's a rocker, and it's a healing song. I tell you, Chuck, it's kind of, it will put to bed some of what we've been speaking about today.
Okay. Such as, because you've had so much hardship in your life. So I'm still like amazed. I mean, your music obviously is inspiring in itself, but just your story is so inspiring as well. Like, didn't you had a near-death experience when you had your pacemaker you died twice.
Yes.
So what was that like? You said you went to heaven.
Yes. As soon as you leave the bone suit.
The bone suit. I like that.
In the presence of love. And it's where we come from. You realize that this is home. It's like, oh my God, I'm home. Oh man, what was that all about? That Earth years. What was that? But you have the satisfaction and you have the resolve of knowing the purpose of the Earth years when you are in that tense, when you are in that state of being. You know these things. But here, I couldn't tell you. I didn't bring that kind of knowledge back into this bone suit. So I'm stuck with my human intellect, and I still got love for where we're going. And now I know, because of firsthand experience, that on my reentry into my body, it was so apparent what that word DEBT had to do with human existence, and what my father told my Uncle Woody was, they'd be sitting there having some beers after they got done hunting, and they were pheasant hunting or upland game hunting, and they'd be having a couple, and my dad said, Woody, if you want to know where the trouble starts in this world, trace that money trail to the top. And I didn't know as a little kid what he was talking about, but I know now what he's talking about, because there is a certain group of people who tell us that the paper, these Federal Reserve notes that we have in our pocket and in our bank accounts, they tell us what that is worth, instead of it being based upon what we are holding as a nation. It's based upon what they are telling us. In other words, it's debt money.
Right. Yeah.
Because in 1933, FDR confiscated all the gold from the American people, gave a 45-day amnesty period by which the people were supposed to turn that gold into Federal Reserve notes.
Right.
Debt money. So you got this class of people. It's not about the money to them. If you own the machine that prints money and the world is dangling on your electricity, that's every time you run that, you're going to give them a little bit more to work with, and you're making up the value of this shit off top of your head. You're telling them, yeah, it's worth this. That group of people have lost touch with reality, and they are not like us. They are controlling us with the weapon of debt, because it's not only the United States that the Federal Reserve families issue to. They issue to Canada, they issue to Mexico, they issue to South Africa, they issue to India, they issue to Japan. I'm telling you, in every country who has fallen prey to these families has succumbed to the debt that they bring, because whichever way these families want them to vote in the UN, that's the way they'll vote, brother, or they won't be funded anymore. You
Wow.
see, it's a crazy mixed up world, but when it's insanity at the top, and trust me, that shit is insane.
Yeah. Well, that's
Trickle down from insanity is not going to be good anywhere it lands on the ladder, as evidenced by our last couple of years here on Earth, brother.
yeah. Well, hopefully things will be getting better with our last couple of years. You said you've seen some miracles in your time. Tell me the story about going through an oak tree. What was this about? Is this real?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Our first manager, we call him Big Jim. He was driving a 65 Chevrolet Impala. And he always drove at least 100, and most of the time 120, wherever we'd go. And we were going into Swartz Creek on Morris Road. We were northbound, and it was a 2-lane road. And I saw a kid way up the road, and I said, back out of it, Jim. That kid, look at that kid up there, man. You don't know what the heck they're going to do. So he backs out of it, and he's slowing down, and we got maybe down to about 60 miles an hour as we're approaching. And this kid's mother was coming out of town southbound on Morris Road, and she pulled over on the shoulder, and without thinking, this kid stepped out right in front of the car that we were in and was going to, go across to his mother. But then he looked, and we were going to kill him. So Jim jerked that car, and we missed him by this far. And I could still see his eyes as we went by, but we hit the ditch and it launched us, and we were in an arc coming over. We didn't have seatbelts on. I mean, this is back in the 60s. And as it's coming over, I look and I see we're going to die. There's 3 big oak trees in front of this big farmhouse, and we're going to get that first one. We're headed right for it, and there's no way out of it. I know this. The driver knows this. I immediately whipped around. I got on my knees in the floorboard in the passenger side of that 65 Chevy. I'm going, no, God, not now. Please, not now. Please, God, please don't. Bang, 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 bang. The car is on a driveway marker, which was a great big rock. It was like 3 feet tall. It's hung up on that. We jump down out of the car, go back over. The tire tracks come up to the tree and continue on the other side of the tree.
What?
Yes, dude. And when the cops got there,
wow,
this guy has got his clipboard. He's shaking like this, trying, and he's asking me for the 3rd time, and I'm telling him what happened. I'm telling him I prayed, and that's what you're looking at right there. The answered prayer. I said, we went through, it's obvious we went through that tree.
I mean, that's what it sounds like with the tire tracks.
Dude,
jeez.
He has not written the first word down. His partner has got the wheel, the measuring device that they got on a stick, and he's measuring, where we left the road, and he's measuring up to, and he gets almost to the tree, and he looks like this to look around the tree. He's looking, and he's got that stick in his hand. And when he saw the tire tracks continuing on the other side of the tree, he fell down, and he was white as a sheet. All the strength in his body left him. He dropped that measuring wheel, and the guy that has been asking us what happened, he drops his clipboard and his pen, gets his partner. He helps him up. Come on, look, I'll take you back over to the cruiser. He puts him in the front of the cruiser, and this guy is still just as white as a ghost, man. He didn't think he didn't think he was going to make it there for a minute. But the guy who had the clipboard walks around, gets in the driver's seat, and the cruiser leaves this scene because they could not put it together, brother.
Wow.
They could not understand why that car did what it did.
That's
and
crazy.
Why we were standing there telling them about it.
Wow. So you've got a book, and some of these stories are in your book, From Grand Funk to Grace. And then are you still writing a follow-up where some of these other stories might be in?
Yes, when I can get around to it, I've got a lot of people who have encouraged me, and it's not like I need more encouragement. It's just I need the time to do it, and I don't have the time to do it, and I certainly don't have the expertise to do it myself. It's got to be somebody else writing my stories, and somebody that can do it. That keeps the interest of the person and that knows how to write a book. I don't know. I've never written one. So I wouldn't want to chance it because I want these stories told in their entirety, and I want them understood.
Yeah, no, you're a great storyteller. I mean, you just at least do the audio version. You can just tell the stories like you just told. That was amazing. And then you've got this, we got to promote your new DVD, From Chile with Love. People can still get this online. Can they still get the autographed copy? Is that still available?
It's autographed through the end of the month. It is available through the end of this month.
Okay. Wow. And you said that audience was really enthusiastic in Santiago, Chile. Even though they don't speak English, they can sing the songs. That's amazing.
Yes, it is. And it just shows you that music has no language barriers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that's another way that you're kind of helping bring joy and love into the world is with all your music.
Amen, buddy.
That's awesome. And then, tell me about the Veterans Support Foundation. I like to end each episode with a charity. So I think some of the money from the DVD goes to that, right?
That's right. The DVD, which sells for $14.99, it has 16 performance tracks, 2 bonus videos, and 5 bonus songs on there that have never been released like this before. And $3 from each one of the DVDs goes to Veterans Support Foundation. And Veterans Support Foundation is of veterans. It's made up of veterans. I met these guys years and years ago. They are serious brothers, and they are for our troops. There's nobody that knows better than a veteran what these veterans are going through, especially our Vietnam veterans who came back and they ran into some shit when they got here. But they have forgiven, and they are getting our troops that are returning now, they're getting them into transitional housing. They're getting audience in front of the veterans, the Board of Veterans Affairs, so that they can be compensated for what they have legally earned in service. And so many that return, brother, with missing limbs, or the family is never going to be the same. And the ones, the families who have lost their loved ones, their son or their daughter in a foreign country, this is it's serious, and because it's not something embraced by lamestream media, people don't know. So for us to make people aware and to thank the ones who are buying the DVD, because of that $3 from each one, they are helping. It is them enabling us to do what we do for Veterans Support Foundation. So thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you for your heart, and rock real good to this music.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this interview. Is there anything else you want to promote at this time? Like I said, I think I'll put your website on the show notes so people can check for tour dates.
Yes, just remember to set yourself free. Don't take anything too serious. Everybody leaves this place. We're not taking anything with us, but we do go back to where we came from. Set yourself free by setting others free. Forgive others, and watch the forgiveness that pours into your life. Watch the change and look for that love.
That's great advice. All right. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
All right, Brother Chuck. God bless you. Thanks for having me again.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye for now.
Well, there you have it. Some of the craziness Mark has been through, but that's not even all of it. So make sure to check out his website in the show notes for tour dates. And I would love to see him live personally, just because I've heard he still sounds great. And there's so many hits that he has. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, check out some of the other interviews I've done, such as with Joey Mullen from Badfinger, or my Don McLean interview. And if you like the show, make sure to tell a friend, and make sure to subscribe too, so that you keep up with future episodes. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day. And remember, shoot for the moon.